Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael, and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Savings Carpenter in the AITA subreddit. The post is titled, "I told my parents they were horrible and they shouldn't have more kids. Hi, first time posting. I am a 16-year-old male who was born when my parents were very young. My mother was 16 and my father was 17. Both families decided it would be best for me if, effectively, my maternal grandparents raised me and my biological parents got to live their lives. That is not to say I did not know who my actual parents were. This is not one of those situations like in movies where the mother pretends the daughter's child is actually her own. I and everyone knew who my biological parents were. My father moved away when he was 18, but my mother remained in my grandparents' house until she was 23 and I was around 7. That does not mean we were close. She always treated me more like an annoying little brother rather than a son. She did not like spending time with me, never attended any of my school functions, showed no interest in my academic work, or took me to do any fun activities. Whenever I was talking about my day, she would roll her eyes or change the topic to shut me up. When she moved out, I barely saw her. She just came to family gatherings, said an awkward hi, and did not even look at me. It hurt, even if by that point I already considered my grandparents to be more my parents than her. My father was still living away, but would come once or twice a year to visit his own family around the holidays and always made it a point to visit me and take me to do some sort of fun activities like going to the cinema or my favorite restaurant, things like that. But to me, he was more like a strange man than a dad, because when I compared him to my friends' fathers, who picked them up from school every day, went to their games, and played with them on the weekends, I did not understand why this man, whom I saw maybe twice a year, was supposed to be the same. Anyway, fast forward to a year ago. My father moved back to the same city where we live. He tried to hang out with me more often, but I was not really interested, although sometimes I complied. I do not hate him, I just do not know him. I even had a bedroom in his apartment, which is cool because he lives in the center of the city. Behind everyone's back, both my parents had started to hang out, and a couple months later, they announced they were dating. It was a shock. They asked me to move in with them to my father's apartment, which I refused, but they argued that we could finally be a family. I was about to start an argument with them when my grandma just said that changing school districts would be very inconvenient, and I could lose all my friends, and the situation de-escalated by itself, although my parents did not let go of the idea. My parents asked me to spend more time with them, and this was particularly frustrating because even though I never had any particular tension with my father, I most definitely do with my mother. I do not like being around her, and she has treated me poorly my whole life, and I feel like she is now only trying to save face because she knows my dad wants me there. Now onto the issue. Last week, they both came into my grandparents' house. They announced they were going to buy a house nearby in the neighborhood so that I could finally move in with them. I immediately said no, and when they said that changing schools would no longer be an issue, I found myself in a corner and said that was never the problem and that I simply do not see them as my parents and do not want to live with them. That is when they dropped the bomb on us. Not only did they want me to move in with them so we could be a family, but my mother was pregnant, so we were going to be a bigger family. I was shocked and I blew my lid at them. I told them they were the worst parents in the world and that they abandoned me for 16 years and now they were going to bring another child into the world and do the same to them. And they never apologized for treating me like garbage and like a mistake they made, making me feel like I was not supposed to exist and dumping me to be other people's responsibility, and only now that they feel like they care do they want to be my family. My mother screamed back at me, telling me I was a brat and that she was not going to make the same mistakes twice raising her second baby, and I told her she never raised me to begin with. My father said that they were young and trying to do the best they could. Well, guess what? The best you could was pretty bad. I stormed out and went to my room, sobbing. I have been very depressed for the last week. They have both called and texted since, but I have ignored them. My grandparents agree with me that I should not move and that my parents should not expect me to be all loving and forgiving after how they have treated me. However, they believe my parents are starting a new chapter of their lives now that they are more mature and stable, which I guess leaves me behind. I have also had time to think that I am the same age my mother was when she had me, and what a huge responsibility that must have been. However, I still cannot forgive them. Am I the asshole for the way I reacted to the news? Edit, thank you everyone for the verdict of NTA. I feel better and it has somewhat cleared my mind. Also, huge thank you to all who are commenting about how awesome my grandparents are. I am planning on showing them this post so they can see how much everyone can see the amazing kind of people they are, and they deserve all the love and appreciation I could possibly give them and more. I have also come to the conclusion that I have a lot of resentments and unanswered questions, as well as misgivings about the future that I need to set straight, primarily with my father. He needs to know how I grew up, and I need to know why he abandoned me. I also feel like I need to warn him about my mother because I am worried about my sibling being abandoned and mistreated like I was. So I am preparing a list of points and questions that I want to bring up to him, and we will meet tomorrow or the day after, and I will confront him with all of these to hopefully get some sort of closure or resolution. Update. Hi everyone, thank you all for the responses. It really helped a lot. It has been an emotional couple of days and a lot has happened. My mind is a little bit scattered, but I felt like I owed you all an update, and I am going to try to be as clear as possible. For those of you who did not read my original post, the gist of it was that I am a 16-year-old male whose parents had me when they were very young. They got separated and left me to be raised by my maternal grandparents. My mother was around but could not care less about me, while my dad went away and we had very sporadic but positive contact. Now he has come back. They are back together, they are having a new baby and want me back in their lives. I refused and told them they are horrible and should not have kids, which brings us to the original post. First of all, I shared my post with my grandparents and they were so surprised by it. They were very happy to see how many people commented about how amazing they are, and I in turn also took the opportunity to tell them how much I love them and how much I appreciated everything they had ever done for me. They are my real parents and nothing is ever going to change that. There were some tears and they told me they loved me and how proud they were of me. They never thought of themselves as doing something special or worth so much appreciation. They were just taking care of family, but they are the best. After that, I started trying to collect my thoughts and arranged a meeting with my father to discuss the things that were bothering me. Why did he abandon me? Why did he think he could just reappear in my life like that? That I was not going to move in with them and that I did not consider them my parents because they never acted as such, etc. We met at a park and he went to hug me, but I stepped away. He looked hurt and just apologized for what happened the other day, then went into a speech about how we could try to transition into living together part-time and respect my boundaries. I went blank. I did not expect him to talk so much, so I pulled out my phone and just showed him the post I made the other day. He started reading it in silence. After a while, he read it all and some responses, and he just asked me if this was true. I said yes, and he asked me if I had questions. He would answer honestly. I asked what happened when I was born, and he told me that when my mother got pregnant, all options were laid on the table. Abortion, adoption, marriage, my grandparents taking care of me, or only one of my parents taking me in. My mother was deadly scared of adoption because some religious group had told them some horror story about dead babies and mothers being killers or some nonsense like that. So she wanted to give me up for adoption, but my father refused. He could not bear the idea of having his child living somewhere and never seeing him again, so he proposed taking me in as sole caretaker and leaving his college plans to stay in our city. But his parents were not thrilled with this plan and pushed him to go to college so that he could provide economically for me. They offered themselves to take care of me, but they were significantly older than my maternal grandparents. Since taking care of me meant taking care of my mother for a while as well, my maternal grandparents decided it was the best decision for them to take me. Also, immediately after I was born, my mother had postnatal depression and the doctors advised them not to completely remove her from my side or more damage to our relationship could be done. My grandparents wanted her to eventually love me as a son. One thing to note about my father that I did not mention in my original post is that even when he was in college, he worked part-time to pay child support, and once he started working in a law firm, he started sending more money to my grandparents and set up a college fund for me, which was news to me. My grandparents do not know about this, but my mother does, so I do not know what to do with this information. My father thought of me all the time he spent away and believed he had left me with a happy family and that he was working to give me a better life. But I followed his life through social media. He went to parties, on vacations, had girlfriends, and did lots of fun stuff, and barely had any contact with me. I asked him why he could not have made more of an effort to be a part of my life. I understand if he needed to study in another city and work there, but it is no effort to call or text. Coming once a year just does not cut it. He looked ashamed and apologized to me, and I took advice that I saw in a lot of the comments here, that I would forgive but not forget, and that maybe we can build a relationship going forward, but it will always be marked by his actions in the past. If he has not been my dad for 16 years, he cannot start now. He seemed sad but accepted my conditions. I then told him about my concerns about my mother, told him how badly she treated me as a child, that I did not think she would be a good mother for my sibling, and that I wanted to go low or no contact with her. He said that after he left for college and they broke up, he would call her once in a while to check up on things, but that quickly ended. When he came back, she explained to him that she and I had a great bond, and even though we did not see each other daily, it was because I was in those teenage years, and that she loved spending time with me and had been a very hands-on mom. I told him that all that she said was a lie and that she never cared for me. He obviously read the stuff from my post, but I also told him other things, like when she would ask my grandparents for babysitting money for taking care of me, or that she would call me annoying or disgusting to my face when we still lived together, and that severely messed me up. He was very serious and said he would talk to her, but that he really would not allow a child to be treated like that, and that he was sorry for letting that happen to me. Lastly, he told me I would have a bedroom in his house, but he understood perfectly that I would never live there. He was quite emotional at this point and got choked up when he asked me if, even if I did not consider him my father, I would consider his baby my sibling. I said of course, and that I planned to be a very active part in their life if I could. He started crying and asked if he could hug me, and this time I agreed. I am happy about the resolution of our conversation, and I really do believe he will be a good parent for my sibling. Once again, thanks to everyone who commented and took interest in my story. I do not know if I will update again. Update 2. So a lot of you warned me about the shit hitting the fan, so to speak, when my biological mother talked with my dad, and today that is exactly what happened. My father sent me a text early in the morning warning me that he was going to confront my mother and that he did not want anything to splash onto me. He reassured me that he believed me completely. I braced myself because I expected her to call me, berating me or something. I truly do not care about what she thinks, but these past few days have been emotionally draining, and I was not sure if I was ready for another full-blown confrontation. Using Reddit to vent has been helpful though. After a few hours, my mother pulled into our house and let herself in, screaming like mad and calling me every name in the book, saying I had ruined her relationship and asking me why had I been blabbing about private matters that do not concern anybody. I said that my childhood matters to me and to my father, who is also going to be the future father of her child, and that her actions ruined her relationship. She called me an asshole and said I was the biggest mistake she has ever made in her life, and I said that I would do anything in my power to take her baby away from her because she was a monster of a mother. We were screaming at this point, and my grandparents, who were in the backyard, must have heard us. They entered the room and separated us and heard part of the fight. I was fighting tears, and my grandma walked me upstairs to my room as my grandpa screamed at my mother about how she dared speak to me that way. My grandma soothed me a little and then went to confront my mother with my grandpa. I heard from the door how they ripped my mother a new one. They confronted her for telling me the things that she did, for treating me like garbage all my life, and for lying to my father. They told her how disappointed they were in her for always treating me with disgust and how many excuses they made for her, thinking she was a child trying to raise a child. But she was now an adult and her behavior continued the same. They said they were on the path of disinheriting her. My mother was screaming about how hard it had been for her and how much she hurt, but my grandparents were having none of that. They raised me, and she was allowed to have the life she wanted and to take all the decisions she wanted without repercussions, ever. I even heard them say that if there was any custody battle over the baby to come, they would take the father's side unless she radically changed everything about her behavior. They went outside for a while, so I do not know what they said, but eventually they came into my room. My grandparents looked extremely serious, and my mother was red and crying and apologized to me through gritted teeth. I did not respond, but my grandparents said on her behalf that she was going to start therapy immediately and she was no longer welcome in the house. I called my father after the debacle and he was furious. He talked to my mother before going to a work meeting or something and confronted her about everything. Apparently, it was nasty, but he was willing to work on the relationship for the good of the baby on the condition that my mother would also be working on improving her relationship with me so that whenever I visited them, I would not feel uncomfortable. After he left, he made her promise she would not contact me until they talked again, but there is my mother for you folks. I asked him to think about what is better for himself and for the baby, and to not hold today against my mother if he does not want to. Also, a thing that has come up a lot in the comments of my previous posts is that my biological parents only want me as a babysitter and that I should steer away from them and the baby for my own sake. But I want to make a point about that. I cannot say anything about their intentions. I know nothing about that. But I am really very excited to have a sibling. Growing up, I had a very small family. It was just my grandparents and me. On my paternal side, I had a huge family with aunts, uncles, and cousins, but whenever I went there, I always felt like the odd one out. They tried to include me and invited me for Easter, Christmas, barbecues and stuff, but I did not really know them. And although they were nice, I always felt like I had a big sign on my head that said that kid John had in high school. I cannot wait to have a sibling and love them and always be there for them and show them what a family is. I want to be that person they can always rely on, and I want to feel that bond with someone. So even if I have my misgivings about my parents, I do not about being a big brother. I hope this is the last update and there is no more family drama in the future. Thank you all for all your help. Having this site to air out my frustrations and having a community to back me up and give me feedback has been amazing, and you truly have helped me out a lot to deal with all of this. So really, thank you so much. Update 3. Hi everyone. I posted a few months back about my situation and I just saw someone put my story on TikTok, so I checked back into this account and saw that I still had some notifications asking for an update. So here it is. Well, first of all, my grandparents are as cool as ever. I have not moved, nor do I intend to, and we spent Christmas together. It was all great. My father and I have bonded more and we are in a better place. He is paying for my therapy and we have done a couple of sessions together. We are in a much better place. He feels sorry for having lost my childhood years, but understands that he cannot get them back. And instead of pushing a relationship with me, he is letting me have my space to build as much of a relationship as I want with him, which takes the pressure off of me, to be honest. We have kind of bonded over my little sister, and I helped him paint the nursery and build the furniture, which I enjoyed a lot. He and my biological mother are in a bit of a weird situation. They live together, but they are not together. My father is extremely angry about everything that she did and said to me when I was little and what I related in my previous post, and he is wary about what kind of person she really is going to be with my baby sister. They are going to couples therapy and individual therapy, and although I see her in passing because I sometimes go to my father's house, she is just barely polite with me, and I can tell she feels like I am the one who screwed up her opportunity to play house with her second baby. I try to pay her no mind, but the only thing that worries me is if she is eventually going to poison my little sister's mind against me or subject her to similar mistreatment like she did to me, because she is also going to be born around all this tension. The silver lining is that everyone else is showing up for my little sister, and that means I have also connected much more with my father's side of the family. They have always been kind to me, but I always felt weird around them. Now that things with my father seem to be settling into a more comfortable way, I feel like I belong to his family more and I can hang out with my cousins, aunts, and uncles more. Sorry if this is not much of an update, but here is how things stand at the moment. Update 4. So it has been a while, but recent developments have brought me back here to give you all a bit of an update. First of all, thank you to everyone who has messaged me and shown me that my situation and I are in their minds. It helps a lot. To do a bit of a recap and avoid all of you going through the entire saga, my parents had me in their teens. They left me to be raised by my maternal grandparents, which turned out to be the perfect family for me. My biological mother was somewhat in my life growing up, but she was nasty and toxic to me. My dad was absent most of the time, but he was a more positive force in my life. They got together about 2 years ago and tried to make me move in with them, to which I refused, and they also announced they were expecting, which sent me off and I lashed out at them. That opened the Pandora's box of lies and manipulation that my biological mother had been feeding my father for years and created an overall messy situation with her blaming me for everything. My father and I have been developing a stronger relationship, and we have become quite close, although I still have some barriers up. My biological mother has been giving me the cold shoulder for the remainder of the pregnancy, and my father was considering whether or not to try and continue the relationship. This brings us to present times. They had a daughter named Ella, who is the most beautiful, charming, and cute baby I have ever seen. My father was ecstatic when she was being delivered and asked me if I wanted to remain in the hospital during the labor, which I happily agreed to. It was amazing to see my sister for the first time, and my father and I both cried while holding her. My biological mother, on the other hand, looked at her with little care and tried to pass her off to whoever was around so she would not have to hold her. The relationship of my parents at this moment was on thin ice, but the maternal spirit that my mother thought she would develop with this child never materialized. When they got home, they received dozens of visits from relatives and friends, and my dad had to take care of everything because my biological mother refused to even be near the baby. Doctors worried she must have been suffering from postpartum depression, but she refused to accept help or counseling. I tried to be gentler with her these days to ease her mental state, but things just got worse. It all came to a head a few days ago when my father went to do the groceries and saw on the nanny cam that the biological mother was cursing at Ella, and by the time he made it home, my mother was actually slapping the baby. My father got furious and she just responded by saying something along the lines of, "These kids are trying to keep us apart. We should get rid of them." My father called the police and had my mother forcibly taken to have a psych evaluation. I rushed to his side when I got wind of it. Luckily, my sister is all right. While my biological mother was in the psych evaluation, my father decided that she could no longer live under the same roof as Ella and had to take my sister away from her mother. I came up with the plan that when my mother was released, she could go rest and start treatment at my grandparents while I would move with my father for a while to help him out and avoid drama. Ironically, all of this started because I did not want to live with my dad, and now that is where I am. My grandparents keep me updated on my biological mother's progress. There are days where she feels truly ashamed of what she did and wants to go back to my dad, others where she is lethargic and non-responsive, and others where she seems happy and content and talks about a clean slate. There will be a court proceeding over the custody of Ella, but we have gotten some sort of emergency ruling granting my dad full custody at the moment. Anyway, things are a bit of a mess, and I wish things had not turned out the way they have. Hopefully, I will still be able to be around my sister, and whatever is happening to my biological mother can be addressed so she can get better. My grandparents are so distraught with all that is happening with their daughter that they are having a hard time coping, but they come nearly every day to check on Ella and me, which is nice. My dad is also very distraught, and even though he is now categorically rejecting the idea of ever getting back together with my biological mother, he still feels sad to see how a mother can treat her baby, and he is mourning the relationship and the life he thought he would have. On my part, I have been busy with school, and even though I try to understand that my mother is sick, I cannot seem to forgive her for what she has done to Ella. If this was her first incident of being negligent or violent, I might be more understanding, but I feel like she is going to be as toxic to my sister as she has always been to me, and I do not want her near us for a second. Snorrel said, "I remember this one is the biological mother, one of those women who think they have to have a baby just to keep the man they love, if you can even call that love. Poor OP, I really hope it does not fall on him when his dad bails during the hard times raising the baby without the mother. Or worse, suckers another woman into doing the job. So many wrong turns and questionable decisions." To this comment, Stardust said, "Yeah, that dad got what he wanted way too easily. Neglect is also child abuse. I got angry when OP said that he listened to Reddit and decided to forgive but never forget. Like, no, you do not owe your forgiveness to this man." Damn it, Gravity said, "When my sister and I got our first boyfriends, the first thing our mom did was march us down to the doctor and get us on the pill. Parents really need to be better about accepting their kids are going to have sex and helping their kids avoid ending up in the same situation as OP's parents. This next post was made in the same subreddit by a user named OKRooster. The post is titled, "I told my father's GF that the more she talks about Jesus, the less she'll see my child." For context, I am a 26-year-old woman who comes from a Catholic family, but my parents decided not to raise me and my siblings as such. We were all baptized for our grandparents' sakes, but nothing beyond that. We never prayed, did not have any first communions, and did not read the Bible. I did not even set foot in a church until I was 14. I am very grateful for that upbringing. Today, I am agnostic and I do not have a great relationship with the church. My husband's family is also Catholic, but he does not practice it. Our first child was born earlier this month, and we decided to raise him without religion. Neither of our extended families cared much, but we have been having some trouble with a few people over it. My father has been dating a Christian woman for 6 years. I will admit I do not like her, but I do not dislike her either. Before I got pregnant, she was not the preachy type. She was not happy when I told her I was agnostic, but did not try to change my mind. She did talk about her religion a lot and kept trying to get my father to engage with it frequently, but not much beyond that. Soon after I announced my pregnancy, my husband and I had dinner with my father and his girlfriend, during which she told us she knew the perfect place for the baptism. We said we were not planning on baptizing our baby, and from that moment she got annoyingly preachy to me and my husband. It was mostly indirect stuff, such as giving the whole family speeches about how glad she was to have Jesus in her life, but some were impossible to mask as unrelated. She gave me a decorative cross for the nursery at my baby shower, tried to make us all say grace during Christmas dinner, and kept bringing up a priest friend of hers who just so happened to also do baptisms. My husband and I stood by our decision. Fast forward to now, our baby was born a couple weeks early. He was pretty much full term, but we were all still worried. He is perfectly healthy and we are all doing well. Yesterday, my father and his girlfriend came over to see the baby. While I was telling them about my labor and how it was at the hospital, she told me she had been praying for us the whole time and that we should all praise Jesus for giving us such a beautiful blessing as my son. Unrelated to her previous preachiness or not, I lost whatever patience I had. I said, you know what, I am done. The more you talk about Jesus and religion and whatever, the less you will see my child. She was quiet the rest of the visit. After they left, my father called me. He told me he understood I was frustrated, but I should not have been so rude to his girlfriend. He told me her intentions were pure and she was only behaving like this because of how important religion was to her. I do not think I'm in the wrong for my feelings, but I am worried I was too rude. Am I the asshole? Update. Hey folks, update time. This might get a little long. I showed my post along with your comments and my replies to my husband. He told me he agreed I'd been rude to my father's girlfriend, but thought she had pushed me to the point at which I had no other choice. He was actually surprised I lasted so long without saying anything. For the record, I am not opposed to religion or to Catholicism. I have religious friends, I have seen God spell, and I have visited churches without catching fire. One of the most beautiful places I have ever been to was the Metropolitan Cathedral in Brasilia. I have managed to endure preachiness for short periods of time. I am just not religious. There are many reasons why I do not have a good relationship with the church, most of which I am not comfortable sharing. I will say that I have been agnostic since I was a teenager, and people have been trying to tell me I am wrong and I need to be Christian or Catholic for longer than that. I also live in a very religious country, which never helped my case. I have always loathed people who obsessively preach about their faith to others. I find it incredibly disrespectful and hypocritical. I would not run around telling people what I think as an agnostic, and I expect my acquaintances to do the same. Sometimes you need to be an asshole to get your point across. I wish I had understood that sooner. I think I downplayed how stressful it was to deal with my father's girlfriend's behavior during my pregnancy. Everything happened a lot quicker than I expected. On Monday, my older brother informed me our father and his girlfriend had told him about what happened, apparently expecting him to take their side. He took mine, and they ended up having a short fight. I decided to sort this out with my father before it also extended to my sister. A couple days ago, my husband and I called my father and his girlfriend to talk about the subject. I told her that as much as I appreciate how much she seems to care about our son, both my husband and I are uncomfortable with the way she has been trying to push her faith onto our family. We do not want to raise our son, as well as any other kids we have in the future, with religion, and we expect the people who will be part of his life to respect that. I told her that moving forward, we would not accept any religious gifts, would not entertain any attempts to make us pray or say grace, and would shut down any speeches about accepting Jesus into our hearts. No more hinting that we should baptize our child either. She is free to pray for us if she wants, but we do not want to know about it. We will respect her faith as long as she respects our boundaries. She remained quiet while I said all of this. When I finished, she asked, "Can't you at least put the cross I gave you in his room?" Not going to lie, that was one of the most frustrating things I have heard someone say to me in a while. My husband nearly lost his patience. I replied with, "This is exactly what we are talking about. No." The answer has always been no and will always be no. And if you keep refusing to accept that, we will restrict your access to our son. It is that simple. We did not talk much after that. She apologized and we said we forgave her. Then we said our goodbyes. Later that day, my sister went to their place and she said my father's girlfriend was very quiet and seemed upset. My father called me on his own yesterday and we talked a little more about this. He did try to defend his girlfriend a bit, but he mostly focused on apologizing to me. I accepted it. His girlfriend also texted me with another apology. She sounded more sincere this time. I told her I do not want her to think I am doing this out of disrespect for her religion. I simply do not share her beliefs. She told me she understood, and this is it. I do not think this is over, but I feel like I have wasted more than enough energy for now. Part of me is still hopeful this will die its own death. Unless my father's girlfriend tries holy waterboarding me sometime soon, I will not update again. My son is happy, healthy, and loved. That is all I care about right now. Thank you guys. I wish you all well. Coral Coast said, "I do not understand people like this. Showing care, concern, charity, and good character is how you draw people to your faith. Turning said faith into a club and beating them over the head with it is rarely a winning approach." Fulcrum CT said, "Be careful and never leave the kid alone with them or else they will try to baptize your child. My holier-than-thou mom and brother tried this. If it had not been for my best friend and sister telling me what happened, I would have never known. I have minimal contact with both." Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you also to partner of the channel, Gamersupps. Use code DLAM to support the channel and get 10% off of your purchase, link in the description. I'm sure many of you like me have a hankering for daily caffeine, so go check them out. Lately, I've been a big fan of Titty Milk and Acid Rain, but they've got dozens of other flavors for y'all to try out. Anyway, thanks again for reaching the end, and I hope you all have an amazing passage of the next 24 hours.